know that it's very difficult to make those sorts of decisions without knowing, the draw and where we'll be playing, etc. But have you got an optimum place where, home camp would be best?
We've looked at all areas, to be honest, and we've trying to find the pros and cons with each spot in terms of, is it the west, the east, in terms of the conditions that you have. Central America seems a good spot in terms of if you have a base camp that you're not too far to travel for your matches. Then you need to factor in, what type of hotel do you have, what type of city is it, in terms of your support, your training facilities. So what we're trying to, we want to be prepared for it, but the only difficult one would probably be Mexico. If you get them in your group with the altitudes, you must play altitude, come back down and then go back again. So that would be difficult, but that's why we took on the US and we gave ourselves minimal preparation. Really one day to 3 days is probably the worst period to play a match in altitude, and we did that. So we exposed the players to the most difficult environment they could have. If we do get altitude, we will welcome it, and I'm sure with 7 to 10 days preparation, we'll be ready for that. But we have a whole range of areas in the States that we have found very accommodating, some great sites where we can actually enjoy being there, accommodation, also, what type of city is there for the players to feel comfortable, because you're together for a long time, so it's not just on the field, we need them to be happy off the field as well. How far are the families from us? So there's a lot to consider, and a lot more people here have more experience of that than me, so I'm getting a lot of good advice on that, and we feel we're on track to having a very good base camp wherever that is.
The time that you've been in the job, what have you learnt about yourself as a national coach as opposed to a club coach, and how do you feel that you're developing in the job?
It's a good question. I think with each window, I'm realising when I first came in, it was just a whirlwind. It's a quick turnaround. Try and put a team together in 4 or 5 days and a staff, and you don't really realise what job you have. And then the national anthem comes up in the first match, and you go, wow, I'm the Socceroos head coach here, and you accept that responsibility and that honour. I think I've settled into it well. I think I'm understanding the role a lot better with what needs to be done between the windows, between the camps, in terms of managing the staff, because we're all kind of offline and everywhere, and how do you stay on top of all the players? What's the best way to do that in terms of, do you engage a lot with the players? Do you stay away from the players and leave them with their clubs? So I think we have found a good balance, always looking to do it better, and I think we learnt a lot, and I did as well from this camp in the States about myself in terms of, did we expose the right players for the Denver game where there was altitude? Should that have been more experienced players, less inexperienced players, and vice versa with the game in Montreal? So you're constantly asking yourself those questions, and now we have Venezuela, who's a bit lower ranked. In your mind, you think maybe Colombia's more difficult, but they'll both be equally challenging. And who comes in good condition? Some players will play 6 games in 2 weeks coming into the Venezuela game, and you think, okay. So I'm learning about, from experience with some of the players, that they're very fatigued to play the first one. They're better off being an impact player there and starting the second. And I think we're getting that balance right, because we're seeing that the performances, we're sustaining a good level of performance in both matches. We're not dropping off in the second. We're probably early on in my tenure, I felt, it wasn't quite there in the second game. So we're still working on that, and I think that's something that I've learned about myself in trying to manage the games better, and we have to maintain the level of performance in both. So we can't have an excuse for either one, and it's up to me with the staff to get the best out of players in both matches.
Tony, we've seen you getting out to A-League matches. Are there any insights you can give us in terms of players who've really put themselves on your radar, who have really impressed you, and opportunities will you be looking to give A-League players in this upcoming window?
Yeah, I've been to as many games as I can attend, and also the assistant coaches are also going out and watching matches, and I think it's not about particularly saying A-League players getting an opportunity. Australian players are getting an opportunity, and the A-League hadn't started for the first two windows here in September and October. That's unfortunate for them, and we're just generally watching to see which players, not. It doesn't necessarily mean for now for this camp, but is there someone that we see the potential that we can track going into June that could be a surprise for the World Cup. In general, the games, are what you expect. There've been some good moments from players, some good individual performances and moments in the match. But overall, it does look like the start of the season as you expect. And I think the quality of the games will improve and get better and better as teams get fitter. But certainly you can see that some individuals have stood out and scored some wonderful goals. And there's been some really good passages of play, so it's been good to watch.
Just to build on the A-League question, Anthony, just how nice is it that the two top scorers, I don't think it's 2 games, but Alex Battleado and Max Caputo, like both 20-year-old Australians, how nice is that as a national team coach to have 2 Aussies in the domestic league starring already, putting their hands up for selection?
Putting their hands up for selection for the Socceroos already? Okay, it's interesting. It's good. They've done well. I saw them both play at the World Cup, so to see them from that experience, come to the A-League and just continue on and really, help their clubs and put in very good individual performances. I think that's encouraging for the league. They're 2 talented young players that hopefully can keep playing, and they have to be consistent and they have to do it over and over and over and over again for the Socceroo level. And I think that's something that we should all expect. But we're seeing a lot of young players from last year that went overseas that played well. So this could be 2 more players that at the end of the year we're looking at them going somewhere also, but they'll have to maintain their level and hopefully they can keep repeating it, because I saw them play at the World Cup where it's challenging. It was challenging for them at the World Cup, not because it's the World Cup, but more I feel that our group were not exposed enough to the pressures of a World Cup. And then in the third game, when the pressure was off, our boys were fantastic in that match. So they need these games more often to be able to handle the emotion of the game. And these 2 boys have come back and just hit the ground running, and it's great to see.
Just and talking about more football as well, like have you had a chance to watch much of the Australian Championship, and a lot of young players getting a chance? Obviously, the 17-year-old like Noah Anderson scored on the weekend. There's a lot of young guys getting a go. What have your observations been, and how nice is it to have another competition where players are getting exposed to another pressure environment in a sense? Yeah,
it is. It's really encouraging, and it gives a lot of belief to these young players that have maybe just missed out on an A-League contract, and they have an opportunity to impress A-League coaches, and crowds have been good. Young players are getting an opportunity. I haven't seen a lot of the games, to be honest. I've seen a lot of the highlights of the games as I've been away. But when I get an opportunity, I'll definitely go out and watch a few games live.
Dave.
Just on the theme of adjusting to the pace of international football, this far out from the World Cup, how would you assess where the team is at in terms of adapting to what we want to be as a group to do solid play?
Yep.
We've got a time left. And so when you go to a short camp, like the one coming up, how do you prioritise what you try to keep in a short space of time?
Yeah, I think we're building depth. I think we can see that ourselves, and new players are coming in and not necessarily surprising us, but taking their opportunity and putting their hand forward in terms of selection. And we want to create competition. That we don't want any players to feel that they are going to the World Cup and they will be playing at the World Cup. So I don't believe that that's right, because you're looking at possibly 26 players the best players going to the World Cup, they all need to contribute, and they all need to play in the way that the profile is required. So, there are different parts of the game that are required in each position, and then you're trying to get the balance right for that. And the more we can expose ourselves to these camps and these games, difficult games, we can see how the balance fits. So for example, an attacking player, you might have a number 10 that physically is great and running in behind, but then you need the balance of someone that's creative that can play between the lines. So it's trying to look at players that we can get that right balance when it comes to the World Cup, that we have different ways of hurting an opponent. So these games, obviously, as I said earlier, are welcome, and the focus is just improving the depth and trying to improve layers of our game. And that's not always easy when you're together for a short time, but we keep seeing signs of that.
And there's the idea of young players on the door. There is a lot of excitement around the group, but there are players overseas starting to get some minutes of breakthrough. What's your assessment of how they're developing? Because as you said with the under-20s, they haven't had a lot of exposure to this level. Where are they in terms of being able to take straight forward selection in the squad?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult when a young player goes overseas, because here, they're in a squad, they're in a salary cap league where there is no relegation either, and you can have 3 or 4 bad games and you find yourself still in the first 11 many times. That's not happening overseas. So they're exposed to something new, where you have a couple of games, the team loses and you're in the team, you're out, and you have to work your way in. So you then have to fight to get back in, and you have to grind, you have to work, and you might have to wait months to get back in. But in that period, you'll become a better player, because you become more mature, you become stronger, and then when you get your chance again, you can show your qualities for a longer period. So they're things that our young players are not exposed to. There's no easy way to ease into that. It's like you get thrown in and you've got to deal with it. That hasn't changed from when I was a player. When I went to Crystal Palace, you're thrown in and deal with it. And you don't deal with it, you're out. That's just how it is. So we can deal with it in a way that if our league was exposed to more games and more pressure, maybe that would help. The gap would be smaller. But I think these young boys are just going through what every player goes through when they first get there. Some hit the ground running, and just find a nice rhythm and the team's winning, and then you'll find that those players go through a period where they go out of the team, and the flip side of that is you go over and you don't see a minute for 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden you become the regular in the side. So the more they get exposed to it, the better, and the more young players that can get over to good clubs that want to give them an opportunity can only benefit the Socceroos in the long run.
Tony, hi.
Hi.
Mine's probably more on your role in the Socceroos. The Socceroos, Australia will always get behind them. Everyone always loves the Socceroos, and has, forever. But there's probably been a few years where people have kind of said, I don't really know the names of the players individually when they used to all be household names. It feels like that's changing now, and there's so much excitement building, the way you guys qualified and heading into the World Cup. I'm wondering if you feel that sense of excitement, I guess, from Aussies in general, and do you consider that part of your role as well, to sort of bring them really truly back to the forefront in Australia?
Yes, I do feel a sense of all the Australians are behind the Socceroos. I think you're right, they always have been. Every Australian, when the World Cup's on, is behind the Socceroos. I think it also helps the way we qualified. It's obviously quite dramatic the way we did it. 2 big wins in June. I think when you watch those games, you feel a sense of the people with the players and the players with the fans as one. The players certainly feel the support. We feel that it's growing. We feel that something special is brewing, and we want to play our part, that not only that every Australian watches the Socceroos, which they will, and the whole country will get behind them, that we keep saying we want to try and do something special at the World Cup. And I keep saying it to the group. One day Australia will go very far in the World Cup. And why not this group? Why do we have to wait, in 2 or 3 World Cups when I'm sitting back watching and applauding something special from the Socceroos? Why should we have limits, and why not do it now? And we want to give ourselves every chance of doing that. And I get a sense that the fans feel that as well. They feel that connection with the group. Yes, of course, it's part of my responsibility to keep growing that connection. And in some respects, it's quite hard because I'm trying to expose many young players and give them debuts and give them a chance if they need it. And that's also hard for the connection when maybe the next camp those players aren't in, and yet the fan was excited about one player and then he's not there the next camp. But so I understand from that point of view, but I believe in the long run, our fans will really connect with this group who wholeheartedly love playing for their country and love that everything that the fans bring to their own excitement about playing for Australia.
I'm thinking back to, I guess, interviewing you as a club coach. You didn't want to give too much away, but you seem really openly excited.
Yeah, I am. I've said it openly many times. I love this job. I'm honoured. I love the responsibility. I don't take it for granted or lightly. I love the expectation as well, because I put that on myself first and the group. I love the fact that we think we can, it'll change one day, not punch above our weight, that we have this sense one day that we can compete with the best. I thought we showed that against the US. We can compete, but I want the players to also feel a bit disappointed they didn't get a result, as opposed to just walking off saying, we played good against the US. We competed well, and let's go home. We're expected to lose. So I want to be a part of something that we change the narrative, and we expect a lot, and you guys expect a lot from the team and expect a lot from me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if we do that, then I think the chances are that our young players, their mindset will be about playing at their best and winning for Australia, as opposed to, I just want to play good for my country and just be competitive, and we know the World Cup is the hardest competition, and we know that you can play well in 3 matches and not get through. But we also believe that we can do something special, and maybe we can go further than we ever have before, and why not with this group? Because I know it will happen one day, because our football is growing within Australia, and also the Australians are growing outside, and there will be names that we'll remember for a very long time, and there's some really talented young players coming through, and I hope this group can feel the responsibility and feel the expectation and the belief that we can go out there and maybe be the ones that do something truly special.
Tony, we've seen at each window there's always been a handful of players that you've brought in that perhaps have raised a few eyebrows or people weren't expecting necessarily. You've said it's for you to have a look at, for you to see how they respond in this environment. I think there's only 5 players that you've called up to every single window. Is this going to continue all the way to the World Cup, or are we going to see it sort of funneling in, maybe not this window, but in March, and as we get closer to what is going to be the final squad? And do you have a list of 30 in a vault somewhere that you've already got, or is it really completely, you want to keep it that way?
It's open. It is open. I envisage maybe in March I have a better idea, but I still feel from March to June that someone can surprise us, that someone is in good form, that goes playing extremely well, that actually bypasses someone else. And I don't want to put a limit or a stop on that, and to announce in March that this is our squad and there may be 1 or 2 more additions. No, I want every player to feel that they have an opportunity, whether they're the experienced players that I've debuted here, like a Luke Bratton or Caceres, or the young players in Ballard or Hayden Matthews or Jacob Italiano who's just come in. Why can't there be another player that comes into to June? This position also allows me to have other opportunities in terms of speaking to other coaches. And when I speak to some of the coaches, I won't name which countries, but they already have a list of 20 players because they have 40 to 50 on their list that are playing 40 to 50 games of the best leagues in the world. And they're looking for that 5 or 6 that will surprise them. I don't have that. I don't think that's a negative. I don't feel that we're behind because of that. I feel the idea I had when I first took over, I believe that the squad has completely changed in my mind of what's possible with players that have come in. When I first thought, okay, this is my group, I don't really have much outside of this, just make it work and make them better. Now I feel like there are 15, 20 players that have actually come into that, and I'm sure there are more to come that I believe can help make us better as a squad at the World Cup. So I'm hoping that I don't change the way I'm thinking.
That competitiveness that you're creating around the group as well, we saw against Canada and USA, friendly matches, but there was a little bit of aggression there, more from the opposition. I felt that we ruffled a few feathers, and that is that a reputation or anything? I mean, it probably doesn't concern you that side of it, but are you pleased to see that aggression from the side, because that's one of the things we have to bring to it?
Yeah, I think maybe we surprised them. I don't think that there are any malicious tackles, or if there was VAR in the games that we'd have any issues in the games. It's just they didn't like the physicality. We are coming to Canada. We're supposed to respect them as a better nation. We're supposed to respect the US, and we're supposed to just accept whatever happens. But if I think of all the qualifying games and even the first game against New Zealand, I think we actually lacked what we've always had as a nation in football and even in all codes, that we are tough, we are resilient, we are hard to beat, we are hard to play against. And then through that, we've tried to develop football to play better football. But we can't forget what makes us, what's our DNA. And I think we've gone away from that. And I felt against Japan and Saudi Arabia, they were tougher than us, they were physically better than us. They won the first challenge, they won the second challenge. Even though we won the 2 games, it's an area that disappointed me in the games. And I thought the first game against New Zealand, to an extent, we almost got bullied in the game. And I can't fathom that, how that can happen with Australians. And it was just nice to see the players being aggressive, but playing well, had good moments. Canada game, US, a lot of good moments. But we're here to win, and we shouldn't forget that side of us. And if we can bring that and the football we're trying to develop, and you can see through the whole country from grassroots all the way through, we're trying to develop a better style of play. But we can't forget that, because if you look at all the best teams in the world, when they lose a game, it's always the coach will come out and say, we didn't win our duels, we didn't win our second balls, so we couldn't maintain momentum, or we couldn't maintain the pressure. We're too soft. So that's the first thing that really, it should be expected that we do that. So from now on, I expect to see that, just that toughness, that willingness to run and fight and chase, and then on top of that, obviously, to constantly try and improve and get better.
Hi, Tony.
Hi. Hi.
And just following on from Mel's question about the belief that you have in this group and the confidence that you guys can do something special at the World Cup next year. To reflect on your year in Charles, a bit more than a year now, what characteristics have you seen that have given you that belief, and does that match up to your expectations when you took over? And you mentioned those first few days of just trying to get a team ready.
No, my expectations were the same, and every player will confirm that. My expectations were to do something special in my first talk to the players. So that hasn't changed. What I've seen change is that we've been able to bring in a lot of different type of players sooner than I expected. When you see the young players that we have in attack, and then you see some of the young players in midfield and defence that have come in, I thought that would take a bit more time before they could actually break through. That's the only thing that's probably changed for me, but the expectation hasn't changed from day one in terms of trying to do something special, and we keep building towards that. And we've got so many great stories through the squad. Of course, the young ones are very exciting when you look at Irankunda, Toure, what they've done now with the national team. But yeah, there are great stories with senior players as well. You know, you look at like maybe a Milos Degenek that didn't play for 18 months through injuries, then plays 7 consecutive games for Australia. We don't lose a game with him in the team. Like, he's done remarkably well for a player that physically was really struggling. So there are great stories on both sides, and he's become a vital member of our squad, which when I joined, I never expected to see Milos in our squad. Maybe I didn't expect to see Toure or Irankunda so early at the level that they're at, but I knew they had it. I just wasn't sure when we would see it. So that's what excites me, that I feel as though there's another player just around the corner that I'll be calling in now in November or in March. You know, we called in Alexander Robertson now in the last camp where he had no football under his belt, but we wanted to see where he's at because he put his hand up and wants to play for Australia. Okay, that was before my time. Let's just deal with now. And it was good to see him. He's a very good player, but well behind the others. Physically well behind because he hasn't played. So something's changed in him where, you know, now he's constantly onto our conditioning coach. He wants extra programs. Because he wants to be a part of it. And then he gets back and now he's played his first game for Cardiff. So that's just one story, but whether he will be for the World Cup or not, time will tell. But they're the type of players that excite me, which gives me a lot of belief moving forward with his team.
You mentioned Alex there. I was actually going to ask you specifically about a certain player, but that's actually one question I wanted to ask you, was your approach to players that have been at the centre of interest from different nations that they can represent and eligibility. What is your approach to that? Because, you know, from the outside looking in, you've always seemed quite calm with it as a coach, but you're also a former player who's, you know, done as much for the shirt as anyone. How do you approach a situation like that?
Probably, as you've said, just I'm very calm about it because I feel if you want to play for Australia, you'll put your hand up to play for Australia. If you need me to beg you to play for Australia, I'm not really sure that that's the player that we want or that I certainly want in the group. It should be a very simple conversation to put your hand up to play for your country, as it is to coach for your country. It's wonderful. So, young people are influenced all the time through agents and through different people giving them advice. So Alexander's put his hand up, wants to play for Australia. So that's all that matters to me. And then you come into camp, we have a look to see where you're at. We now know where he's at, and he does as well. And that's just one example, but you know, we're seeing a lot of those examples with young players that have come in. And if they want to choose something else, well then that's their choice as well, and you have to respect that. So I respect it either way, but I'd like to think that we're trying to create a special environment and we want players that really want to be there.
And just that change in Alex, how satisfying as a coach and a mentor is it to see a player really want to be part of the group now?
I don't know about before, whether he wanted to be. When you say now, what I saw was a player that wants to be there. I hadn't met him before. I hadn't worked with him previously. And now the rest is up to him about what happens next. But yeah, every player and every situation is different, you know. And some players come in and, like I say, can really adapt very quickly, and some need some time. But the key is that, you know, if they want to play at a World Cup, then they have to understand that their level needs to be the highest they've ever had, and you know, anything short of that will leave you out of the World Cup.
Well, good, cool. All right, we'll switch to the virtual crew now. Joey Lynch, should come through the speaker, Tony. We'll just get you looking straight at the cameras. Joey.
Hello everyone. Tony, how are you going?
Joey.
Hopefully
Good,
you
thank
can
you.
hear me.
I can.
Well, excellent. Tony, I wanted to ask, especially with in mind you saying how you want to leave the door open for players to emerge as late as possible, with limited opportunities for you to actually get them in the camp and see on the training track, What do you want to see from players during games when they're at the clubs? I guess maybe especially the young players that don't have the resume or the runs on the board of a Jackson Irvine or Matty Ryan. What do you want to see from them week to week at their clubs that can prove to you that they're capable of playing at a World Cup? Because obviously your expectations and your measure of success are probably very different to us when we see them score a long goal or something like that.
I think, Joey, just the consistency. I think they don't have to prove nothing to me. I think they just got to keep playing well for their clubs. They obviously have a coach at their club. They have a style of play. They need to be fit. They need to be strong. They need to repeat their performances, and that's all they can do. And whether that puts them in the frame of the World Cup squad selection, time will tell. But that's the only thing they can control, and they don't need me to tell them what to do in terms of what I want to see. Just want to see high-level performance consistently every week, and that gives every player an opportunity.
And remember, back in Denver, you talked about how the coming window you wouldn't look for opponents based on searching for pot 2 or pot 3, and you've certainly been as good as you were picking up 2 very strong South American sides to play. But with them locked in now, does that hunt for potentially pot 2 affect how you'll manage in the game? Say it's 0-0 in the 80th minute, you chase a result where you otherwise might not have?
Yeah, okay, look, it's a conversation that, about pot 2 and pot 3 that we've brought about due to our form, because before June, I don't think there were any conversations about pot 2 or pot 3, but then when you win 2 big games against Japan and Saudi, you jump on the verge of pot 2, and it becomes a discussion, and obviously, I understand why we discuss it. To suggest I'd play differently or different players due to pot 2 or 3 would suggest that I don't trust some players, and I don't think that will happen. I think regardless of pot 2 and pot 3, it would be great to get into pot 2, but I'll trust the players the same in both games, regardless of that situation.
Marco.
G'day, Tony. Just on Jordy Bos again, mate. I guess one of your key, players. How concerned are you that this injury keeps happening, and can there be anything done to manage it better?
Look, yeah, of course we're concerned. We don't want any players to get injured, and he's a young player that we've seen perform at such a high level from where he was at Westerlo, where I watched him play, was a good player, and now he's gone to Feyenoord and he's taken his game to another level. So it's disappointing for him. It's also part of football as well, and I'm sure with our medical staff in constant dialogue with Feyenoord's, they'll try and do everything they can to stop this happening and try and just support him, because he's a very explosive player, so that can happen. Unfortunately, it's happened to him a couple of times now, and we'll just make sure that we can support him anyway off the field, but also in any of his rehabilitation, that we can help him get back bigger and stronger than what he is now, which will make him a great player for us at the World Cup.
And mate, from what you said before, when you said that you'd spoken to some other national coaches who were in the spot where they're, they've probably got 20 certainties and they're looking at 5 or 6 others. Are you, in your mind, is there in your team, squad, are there any certainties? Is it like 6 to 8 or 10 that are going to be there, like injury stuff, like aside?
Julian.
G'day, Tony.
Hi.
You just touched before on why you think the Socceroos can do something really special, but also sort of if they toughen up a bit and tap into that sort of same fighting DNA that other sports have had. I guess the narrative in Australian football for a long time has been that, we're always underdogs because we don't have enough players, our players get poached from other football codes. So is that a cop-out? Is it time? Do you think we have the players to do it? And then why do you think it hasn't happened already?
Look, I think we have the potential to do it. We have a lot of young players coming through now that don't have the international experience. You can't just buy that. You can't just click your fingers and say, okay, now he's an experienced international and he can deal with the pressures that come with playing at a World Cup, because we don't know that until we get them there. And as I said earlier, we saw with the under-20s, I felt that the first couple of games we were overawed, not that we weren't good enough or that we didn't have the players. So you don't know how the players will deal with the situation, but I feel we're building a squad and a lot of potential that in years to come can hopefully shed that tag of just the underdogs. But we shouldn't forget or lose that toughness that Australians bring, and that desire and that willingness to win and fight. That spirit should always remain there. And with these young players, emerging players coming through, the talent and the qualities that they have, individual skills, can make us hopefully a force in years to come. But saying I want to do something special is just, we just don't want to have limits. We just don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into let's be competitors at the World Cup and let's go home and pat each other on the back for being there. I want us to aspire for more, and I know the players believe that, and they want to aspire for more, and so as the coaching staff and the whole FA and hopefully all you guys as well in here will keep pushing us to get better and better.
One more, Julian, or you done? Anna.
Hi Tony.
Hi, Anna.
Hope you're well, and thanks for your insights today. Just hearing all you talk about, players not having limits, stepping up, handling the physicality and heat and all that. You've put a lot of faith in a couple of young players in Mo and Nestory to lead the line, obviously, with kind of helping them out. I guess such young players, what gives you the belief and confidence in them that they, are capable of stepping up, standing up when it gets really hot, come those big games of the World Cup?
Yeah, look, just look. Firstly, it's their ability. They have the ability. That's clear. Nestor's now playing quite regularly at Watford, so he's getting exposed to tough situations and backing up every 3 days in a competition that is really physically demanding, and you need to keep backing up by performing well. And I think he's exposed to that. Mo's a little bit different. I think he's just starting to play regularly. I don't want to jinx the young man, but seeing him now back up, I think it's 5-6 games consecutive that he started, and that's the most he's had in his career. So we have to see whether that can continue, and I believe that they can make an impact at the World Cup, whether that's starting a match, whether that's coming on in a match, but they will be important players because firstly they have the quality, and they've shown that they're on the pitch. They're showing that they belong in this environment, and I felt that probably for the first time in the Canada match, that I could see that they were struggling in moments of the game and not retaining the ball well, but you can just see the belief and confidence in them is, we belong here, and we'll get through this period. And then come the second half, Mo could have had a hat-trick, and Nestor scores a goal. So I think that's the growth, but also shows that they're just starting to feel at home in the Socceroos, and if that can continue, then we've got two really good, young, talented players that could hopefully shine at the World Cup.
And just not on those two, but obviously come January, you have some players that will be either not getting game time, or maybe the J League sort of finishes up. Are you encouraging? I know you don't control what players do at club level, but are you encouraging players to seek moves, to look at loans, those sorts of things, just because you're only going to have a couple of windows before the business starts? Yes,
those players obviously, especially in Asia, or in Japan I should say, because their league is changing to beginning in August next year. They will have a competition, it'll just be slightly run differently, so there are games in Japan, but they're just seeking maybe advice, or they're getting told from their probably representatives and their clubs that they can find other competitions to play for 6 months, and I think if they're playing regularly, obviously that gives them a better chance to be in the frame for selection.
All right, if there's one or two more follow-ups, happy to take them. All right.
Just quick one, next month is, can you believe it's 20 years since November 16? I know you're playing the day before, you feel like just finding an old VCR player, shutting the game on, showing the boys how that meant.
Exactly.
Will you guys look to reconnect and sort of, take learnings from that for you as well, being the first sort of coach to have played a World Cup without coach as well?
I didn't think of that, but I might use that actually. That's a good little narrative there. When I think back, what a special day that was for Australian football, and just the experience of playing in Uruguay and the difficulty we had there, and then flying back and getting the job done. So that's we created history and we started something there, because all these years later, it's consecutive World Cups, and maybe we can use a bit of inspiration from that for these next games for the players.
Tony, with the limited time that you're going to have with the squad between now and the World Cup and leading up to the World Cup, how much will you be able to create the Tony Popovic style of play in the Socceroos, or how much do you just have to be pragmatic about the fact that you're getting players to do what they can do?
No, I think the time is the time. We can't change that. So we're not going to speak about we didn't have time to do what we wanted to. I'm happy with the situation. We deal with it accordingly. We know how many sessions we get out there. We don't get many on the field, but we feel that we're building something and constantly improving and evolving. And come the World Cup, I know we'll be ready for the first game.
Not that we're setting up on your end.
No, it's okay. No problem.
I appreciate by March you're going to be right in the thick of things, so this question you might not want to even think about it then, but obviously your contract goes through the end of the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen how much work goes into building this squad, getting the squad there. Have you given thought beyond the World Cup, or is it, you think, going to be purely determined by what happens in North America next year?
It's an interesting question. It's no, in my mind is it's up until the World Cup. That's the agreement we have, and after the World Cup, we'll determine what happens next. But in terms of this job and the head coach of the Socceroos, we are planning not just for now, but we're also planning for the future. These young players coming through are not all necessarily going to the World Cup, but there is a good chance a lot of this group that we're trying to form can be a part of the Asian Cup, which will be the following January. So I'm not just thinking about the World Cup, and regardless of whether I'm here or not, I think it's my duty to not just think about this World Cup with players, but also think about setting something up that can have us with sustained success and build a future of a new generation of players.
Joey?
Tony, just wanted to quickly ask, there's been a lot of different noise about what size squads we might have at the World Cup. Some are saying 23, some are saying up to 30. Have you received any indication from FIFA, FA, anyone about just how many slots you'll actually be playing with come next June?
No, nothing concrete on that, but we're planning towards having 26. If that changes, we'll have to deal with it. So that's a number we're thinking about at the moment, and if we're told differently, then we'll adjust accordingly.
Apologies, Vince.
I accept it. Tony, do you still have aspirations, detached from Socceroos to coach overseas one day in club football? You obviously had those experiences in Turkey and Greece, saw the ruthlessness, I guess, of European football, what it could be like, which Andrew's obviously just experienced as well. Is that something you'd like to return to one day?
Look, I just want to be, as a coach, the best coach I can be. And right now, I'm trying to be the best coach I can be with the Socceroos. The experiences that I've had have actually made me better as a manager, as a person, as a leader. So I don't regret any part of my journey that I've had, and this part of my journey now is special. What will happen in the future will happen in the future with coaches. It can be that the FA says we don't want you any longer, and that's part of also the role that I have as a coach. And but I'm loving what I'm doing here, and I love the people I work with, and they will get the very best version of Tony Popovic right now that I can give.
Anna?
Yeah, so just on one of your players, you got to first sort of look at Cammy Devlin in camp. Since then, he's been man of the match against Celtic, doing really well in Scotland. How much does that excite you as another option in terms of getting that midfield punch, especially when you just mentioned you're about to get Jacko back, potentially for this window, I take it?
Yeah, more options the better, Anna. And I watched the game, Hearts and Celtic, and Cammy did a good job, and they won and deserved to win, and deservedly sitting at the top of the table. So he's obviously been a big contributor to that. And when I came in, I wasn't sure how much of an option Cam was for me, and it's probably another example of a player that gives me another option, and another player that's put his hand up for selection, and he probably just fits into that role, or that player that could actually come in and be a World Cup squad player, and hopefully there are more like him that put their hand up for selection.
Okay, last couple. Tracy?
Thanks, Tony. You mentioned leadership there and being the best coach you can be. What makes a good leader?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of leadership, I think we can all say the right thing. We can all, make promises or tell everyone what we want to do. But I think the best leaders are the ones that follow through with conviction. And I believe that's the best way of getting respect from people. And, I've always tried to, if I tell the players something, I will follow through with it. And I believe that the leader, first and foremost, must set the standard, and whatever you ask of someone else, you must be able to do yourself. And I've always tried to live by that. Set the example, don't lower your standards, and try and get everyone at that same level, and always being the one that striving for more, leading by action first, and then all the people, from what I find, enjoy that and they want to jump on board.
Okay, last one, Dave.
Just on the 20 years of November 16, and also the responsibility of being Socceroos coach, when the Socceroos are healthy, the game is healthier. How much does that responsibility sort of weigh on your shoulders, and also 20 years on from that, how much more can this team take the game forward and continue to reach its potential?
Yeah, responsibility is there, but it's not I've never felt this this role to be a burden for me, because I felt it was the right time for me. And I think I said this when I first started, that if I was asked 4 or 5 years ago, I don't feel I was ready for this responsibility in this role. But it's not a burden for me. I don't carry extra weight because I'm a Socceroos coach. I carry joy, and it's a pleasure. And there's nothing difficult about it for me. There are challenges, but there are challenges in every job, regardless of football or your jobs. So there are challenges in everything, but it's certainly not a burden. The responsibility, I understand. 20 years on, where we sit now, from when we qualified, and I hope in 20 years' time that the Socceroos are even better than we were when we played, or where we are now, that in 20 years from now we look back and say there's been an evolution, and 20 years later everyone is expecting constantly that the Socceroos are matching it with the best. That's probably the dream of mine, that I see that happen.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Very much.